Arbor Human Rights Commission. And let's begin with a roll call. What?
Call the meeting.
Oh, I have to call the meeting to order. Call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Kennedy.
Chair Stanball,
Here.
Commissioner Winkler,
Here.
Commissioner Meadows,
Here.
Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Garber,
Here.
Commissioner Bond,
Here.
Commissioner Pitzmeyer, Councilmember Gazietwin. Here. Councilmember Song.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson. All right, we have quorum.
I don't have to say what I was going to say before. I think we will start with public comment.
Before we begin, did you want her to make her introduction?
Yes. Okay. I will do that.
You should also mention that there's a time.
Oh, yes.
Before public comment.
Oh, and we think 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You want me just
I'd like you to just make an announcement to begin with.
So I am Councilmember Gazietwin, which many of you I'm sure know. Just wanted to alert all, I mean, you all probably know there is a ceasefire resolution coming tomorrow. And, you know, I'm happy about the support that we got for it. I'm hoping it will pass. It's a call for peace. I'm hoping that it will help people realize just the urgency of what's happening and it needs to end, and that it'll bring our community together. Yep.
Let's start with public comment. We're going to allow you 3 minutes to speak. Please come up in front when you're ready. The first person is Blaine Coleman.
Hello. My name's Blaine Coleman. As you may know, in 2003, this very Human Rights Commission unanimously approved a resolution against military aid to Israel. And the City Council refused to act on it. In fact, the City Council refused to even say anything publicly about it. That was in 2003. Well, now we've taken a giant step backwards, and finally we're at the point where the City Council is probably going to pass a very, very modest resolution for a ceasefire. Now that approximately 30,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in the Gaza Strip. 30,000 Palestinians killed with your tax money. So, of course, it's a good thing that a ceasefire resolution is probably going to pass. That's a good thing. But let's not get carried away, because what's needed after that, as soon as possible after that, is a resolution against military aid to Israel. It's a very elementary thing. How elementary? So elementary that this Human Rights Commission back in 2003 unanimously approved a resolution like that and sent it to the City Council way back then for adoption. So I don't think it's asking too much, especially with 30,000 Palestinians now dead in the Gaza Strip in just the last 3 months, killed by your tax dollars. Now, you may have noticed roughly 60 U.S. city councils alone have approved ceasefire resolutions. A few of those resolutions included a clause against military aid to Israel. If you have a sense of history, you know that similar kinds of resolutions were passed in the 1970s and 80s against apartheid South Africa. They were very important because they contributed to basically the apartheid government of South Africa becoming isolated and finally having to give up and allow freedom for everybody. So these resolutions in city councils are very important, especially important to end apartheid regimes and allow something...
30 seconds.
Okay, and allow something like democracy to take root, and especially make sure that there's no more mass murder against the Palestinian people in this case, or against the African people in the case of the 1970s and 80s, which is what South Africa used to do. So these city council resolutions are important, and I hope this Human Rights Commission will encourage the city council in their ceasefire resolution and in a future resolution against military aid to Israel.
Thank you. Sarafi?
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to come express the importance of the moment we're in right now, that our country is committing a genocide overseas. We're seeing thousands of people dead, and a lot of people are remaining quiet on it. And that is, I think, one of the most confusing aspects of what has been going on recently. We're seeing this live on our telephones. South Africa is releasing a booklet on all the crimes committed by Israel, but yet we still see a lot of our leaders remaining silent on what's happening there. We have members of our community repeating lies about beheaded babies, about rapes, and that's to incite hate in our communities as well, and to increase Islamophobic and anti-Arab sentiment. We are remaining silent on this. If we were to have some child before us, we would tell them if they were doing something wrong, and we wouldn't allow them to continue moving forward in the way that they're moving forward. We shouldn't be encouraging these people. We should tell them if they're talking about continuing on the violence, not calling for a ceasefire where people are being indiscriminately murdered. That is wrong. Instead, we're letting these people come and express that they want the murder to continue, and it's continued for 75 years. My father is a refugee from Palestine. This has been a lifelong fight for him. He was born in a refugee camp. He's 75 years old. He was born a year ago and left. And to this day, we are still fighting. He tells us every day he wants to return. He can't return in a plane, he'll return walking by ship, and in his dreams. This is something we need to speak up against. It's been 75 years. I was at the last city council meeting, and one of the Zionists who was there for us not to pass a ceasefire resolution came and spoke to me about how we should have peace, how we should work together and share stories. Something about Arab culture is that we get a lot of stories from our elders. Our elders have a very high place within our communities, and we hold them very dear to our hearts. They teach us everything about our lives, about our culture, about our history. Right now I'm watching our elders be murdered indiscriminately on our phones. I'm seeing mothers be shot in the street next to their children. My friend's aunt was murdered in the street, point blank. She was shot by an Israeli soldier, and they couldn't even move her body. They couldn't move her body from the streets. What type of stories are we to share if we're being erased? It's important that everybody speaks up against this. We have the evidence. The time for silence is over. Please speak up, and please come to the council meeting. Speak with us. Thank you.
Motion. For you, motion?
My name is Mushkan.
Mushkan.
Sababi is the one.
Moshkan,
Break it in two. It's easier that way.
Yeah, break it into.
I've said it myself, I know I can do it.
Yeah.
Sababian Asfadi.
Start with Savabi.
Okay. So, I've been coming here for many, many years, and as you can see, Ms. Leslie Steinbach, who has been the head of this group for many, many years, still can't pronounce my name. This is how much respect people in this group who have for people who fight for freedom for Palestinians. I've been coming here for many, many years, and I have been demanding a cutoff of military aid to Israel. It is 94 days that Israel is committing a genocide by declaration of hundreds of human rights lawyers. And as my friend Aya said, tomorrow is going to be the first day that Israel is brought to International Court of Justice for crime of genocide. And they're going to be studying it for a couple of days and have a ruling. The point I'm trying to make is that the racism that rules places like this is deep. It's very deep. This assembly, a Human Rights Commission, which when I heard their name 20 years ago when I came here, I was flabbergasted. I said, this is a wonderful time if they have a Human Rights Commission. What I didn't know was that it really does not function as a Human Rights Commission. What it does is it chokes human rights activists like myself. And they will make sure not one word comes out of the crimes that Israel is committing. Israel has not just started doing this. They've been doing it for 75 years. And not one word out of this body for the past 94 days that they have been slaughtering women and children. Now, this is all bad news, but the good news is that somewhat a very weak, but at least a resolution that has the word ceasefire in it is going to be discussed at the City Council tomorrow night. And I invite everyone who can see me at home to come and speak up. That is the first step towards getting the Ann Arbor City Council to pass a resolution that says cut off the money to the genocidal Nazi state of Israel. The point is that we should not give the Nazi Zionist state of Israel one more penny. We should cut them off. We don't want our taxes to go to Israel so it can slaughter 35,000 people in a blink of an eye. We want them to be cut off. So tomorrow night is a step forward. It's not great, it's a step forward, but we want the ultimate thing to be to cut off any aid from the United States to the genocidal state of Israel. Free Palestine, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, Zafar.
Hi, thank you, board members. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I want to talk about 4 different incidents which are related to, I think, some form of discrimination. The very first one happened at the Ann Arbor Public School Board meeting. I think many of you are aware that a trustee, it's on video, it's shocking that a trustee in a room which is full of people, in a meeting that is being live streamed, it feels comfortable enough to say such a discriminatory and racist thing. Basically, they said that President Mohammed, because of her background, was not objective. Okay, that's what she said. And when you think about what's happening at our higher powers of office, it should not be surprising that discrimination and hatred is up, right? These are the people who are supposedly, at least our students and schools look up to, right? If this is this is the behavior that our role models are exhibiting, like what should we expect? And this is in Ann Arbor, right, which is a liberal bubble. If this happened somewhere in rural Texas, maybe I could understand, right? But this is inexcusable. So the first thing I want to do is I want to ask the Human Rights Commission to condemn this event and to start an investigation. This should not be allowed, full stop. The second one, I really appreciate both, at least 2 of the co-sponsors of the ceasefire resolution are here, so thank you for introducing that resolution onto the City Council. I think it should really be, hopefully everyone has seen the language of the ceasefire resolution. It really is uncontroversial. As someone else earlier said, all it's asking is basically that this ongoing genocide, like indiscriminate killing of people, should stop. I mean, full stop. Hostages should be released. I think no one can disagree on what's in that ceasefire resolution. I think if as humans we cannot, I think all of us can agree in this time that we live in that killing of civilians is never okay, regardless of their background, regardless of their religion or ethnicity. I think the ceasefire resolution is pretty good. It doesn't have any language that could harm anyone. So I'm encouraging the Human Rights Commission to endorse the ceasefire resolution. I think it will give it more leverage. I do hope that the City Council will pass it, but that's a different body. I think there's a bigger issue here, which is like the ongoing anti-Arab prejudice, the Islamophobia, and I also want to acknowledge that anti-Semitism has also gone up. There's no question about it. But what's happening around us is that the way, the congressional spaces, they talk about anti-Semitism, they never talk about Islamophobia, okay? And that's discriminatory in itself, right? So I think I want to ask, I want to encourage the City Council to put out a statement, the Human Rights Commission, to put out a statement condemning all kind of hate speech, and also sort of investing resources where actually we can educate people around us. The fact that people openly come to our City Council and advocate against the ceasefire, think about what is it saying? They're saying indirectly that they want this genocide to continue. The fact that someone can say that in a public space is appalling. And I want the Human Rights Commission to come out and like condemn all kind of hate speech. There's another issue, and I think I'm going to be out of time. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like a resolution, we'd like to approve the agenda.
Stand by. For folks who haven't, who run out of time, when can comments be, when will we accept additional public comments?
Just raise your hand.
We have had people
There is a
sign up.
member of the audience who wants to
So
speak.
if they
and
weren't
it's
here to
just
sign up
arrived.
before 7 p.m.,
I'm sorry.
they will not be speaking. So if they didn't sign up before the start of the meeting, they will not be able to speak.
Sign up. Okay, he heard you.
But comments can still be submitted to the Human Rights Commission over email
That's true.
and phone.
That's true.
Is there an email that we can share? The HRC email?
Yes.
Want to share?
Yeah.
Just say, if you have any additional comments or input that you'd like to share with the Human Rights Commission, you can email the Human Rights Commission at hrc@a2gov.org.
Never hear from him again.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Approval of the overall agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Approval of December minutes.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Any comments about the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Follow-up for outside work. City Council, what is going on besides the resolution and besides the, ban the box? Because that's further on the agenda. What would you like to tell us about, should we know about?
I can speak to, there's been some talk about the city declining to advance an RFP submission for unarmed crisis response. So as you're all aware, unarmed crisis response started as a resolution and then was advanced during our budgeting with ARPA federal dollars, and then again with budgeting with general fund dollars. So unarmed crisis response has received we've already done the legislative work, meaning we have a resolution behind, affirming that this is something that we wanted the city to do. We've budgeted for it with general fund and federal funds, and then went through an RFP process where we invited folks, had community engagement, saying this is what we think the program should look like. Is there a partner who can actually implement it? We had one submission from Fair-Based Safety, which is a local organization, and I just have to emphasize that when it's in that process, it's within city staff's hands. So that's where the city administrator, our attorneys review RFPs and decide it's no longer a political effort, right? So like you wouldn't want electeds to intervene in any other RFP process. We can't choose who our favorite bidders are that we might have relationships with. So to that end, the city administrator has said that has declined to advance the RFP, and that news went out end of December, and we're looking to reissue the RFP with, I think, with guidelines that will really speak to how, again, what the city is looking to, what we think the city can do, and would work along the lines of what the community is expecting, as well as speak to some of the guidelines we have to submit reporting on federal funds. We can't it's not just general fund money. So there's some liability issues related to the RFP that was submitted, and we're hoping to see if this particular organization is more than welcome to resubmit. And hopefully we can also put this RFP out to a broader audience. So there's hubbub around the idea that the city council has canceled unarmed crisis response, and that's factually incorrect. We have not canceled the program. There's not every single city council person and mayor is in support of this. The city staff is in support of this. Our police are in support of unarmed crisis response. It's just trying to figure out who can actually implement it. It's very different from budgeting and wanting it.
Right.
So.
Lynn, is there a way we were on the resolution, and
Yeah.
and we wanted to be involved. That RFP, I had a lot of trouble with. I mean, I was a contractor who responded to a lot of RFPs, and I would have had a hard time responding to that. Is there any way we can have input into that? Because we need to, because both us and IPPOC, we're two organizations that not only care a lot about it, but
I mean, you can always have conversations with the city administrator and the city attorney's office.
is it the city administrator himself, or is it?
It's the office.
It's the office,
It's the
so-
office, yeah.
Okay.
And that's something that we can't ask the city administrator to have conversations about.
But you think we
We've
can?
encouraged folks who have any interest in unarmed
Okay.
crisis response to reach out to the office. So we just can't direct our city staff's attention to particular
Yeah.
RFPs or bids or bidders, you know, it's just, it's inappropriate.
No, I don't have bid, I don't have a bidder, but I think it has to be described in a different way. You know, where they-
Sure, it'll be, I think what council members ourselves are doing is we have a resolution that will, hopefully it's already on the agenda for tomorrow, reaffirming our commitment to unarmed crisis response, because we just want to make it clear in the community
Good.
that this has not been canceled.
That's good.
It's just coming back, hopefully with some clarity as to what's possible, what's likely, and with the funding that we've made available. And then the additional work outside of tomorrow's resolution for remaining the need and will behind unarmed crisis is that I know I've already had conversations with county commissioners and the mayor, and we're just trying to figure out how we can make it more sustainable beyond the money that's been already allocated, because the ARPA funding has to be spent by 2026. And if we don't get this RFP going and out by, I think, before the end of this month and reviewed before this next budget cycle, then it just puts us so much farther behind. In the meantime, the political work that we can do is try to find additional funding beyond 2026 and start thinking about how it can be a sustainable program. And hopefully that will also incentivize folks who are thinking of partnering with the city to understand that it's a long-term commitment. It's not just the next 2 years. It's hard to start a new organization with a 2-year lifespan.
Right.
Yeah.
And is this an organization, or is this like a 501c3?
I think it's a nonprofit with 2 staffers. And
Okay.
they're offering a limited time for response. So I think it was kind of a mismatch all around. So we're going to try to find a better partnership.
Right. That's definitely interesting.
You know, I can add just one thing. I've been getting a lot of questions about why can't we work with we received one applicant that was just described. Why couldn't we work with that applicant? And there's a lot of rules to help control an RFP process to make sure that it's unbiased and objective, especially when there's actually federal funds involved, which there are in this case. And you actually can't do that because it's favoring an applicant. So I just wanted to answer that publicly. That's why we can't work with just one specific applicant to get their application up to par.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Makes sense. Anything else we should know?
There'll be an amazing meeting tomorrow.
There's a lot of stuff on the agenda, yeah.
Yes.
It's a genocide and you're slapping your asses
Beyond
on it.
the
Disrespectful
operations.
to laugh.
Please.
It's disrespectful to laugh at a time of a genocide when people are here to talk about it.
Excuse me?
It's disrespectful
Tomorrow
to
is
interrupt
going
the
to be
meeting.
an eventful thing and laugh at it?
You have to say
You should be ashamed.
Okay, point of order.
Yeah, it's,
We will have to ask you to leave if you do that again. I'm sorry.
I encourage everyone to either attend or watch the meeting. We'll hear some new voices speaking to the hard work that Councilmember Ghazi Edwin has put in all throughout break at all hours with so many community groups. So it'll be a long meeting, but I told Councilmember Ghazi Edwin that if she wasn't having these discussions within the community, I don't think it would have happened otherwise. So,
Thank you.
that's really important for her to be in this commission and then now at the table. It would have been nothing. So I hope if we can come, if you can view it, submit comments, encourage folks to participate. It'll be a difficult discussion, but I think it's a loving one.
Yeah.
And we don't mean disrespect by laughing at just the amount of stuff on the agenda. I mean, this
Right.
is a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching situation. And we're doing our best. We're doing our best to give, and also, it's not just me, obviously. The activism and the new faces that we saw get involved in policy in our city is so important, because it is really a reminder that like good policy only gets made when you have a diversity of voices involved. And I hope we can continue to engage new people in our community that have started to be involved, even after this.
Facial recognition, is anything happening with that?
I talked to, well, a bunch of people who are asking us to look a little bit more closely at the cities that implemented this already. I know I sent you a list, Leslie, and I don't know if that was sent on to folks.
I did not see a list.
No, you didn't see an email that I had sent to you with a list of cities?
I don't think so.
Yes.
I remember that.
This was back in November.
Okay. I don't understand when either, but
I can resend it.
please.
Um,
Do you want me to circulate it?
That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I should also send it, because I don't have the group list.
Yeah.
So just send it all. Can I send it to you?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, you can send it to me and I will pass it along.
Okay.
I know, we already talked
That's okay, sorry. And then, so maybe we can take a closer look at what the cities have done. And we already have ACLU language. So we just need to marry that with what the last draft that we have. So I think the next step is really just to set that meeting with prosecutor Jen, I can't remember her last name. Janetsky, yes. And then Judah, Brandon, Aisha, and I don't know who else wanted to be on this. I know Councilmember Redina also wanted to revisit this. He was feeling nostalgic for when this was here, when he was on there, on the commission. So I need to set up the meeting time before the end of this month, and we should just print it out, honestly. We have all the pieces, we just gotta put it onto paper.
Okay.
If I can support in any capacity, I'd be happy to. Oh, okay, that'd be great. I think the one thing is trying to look at what other cities have done. So we had a whole list from the ACLU where they've banned, they've implemented facial recognition bans. I think the kind of stumbling block for us is that you can have a ban within the city's use in like procuring technology, or preventing procurement technology, but that doesn't prevent like landlords or schools, or I don't know,
private security.
yeah, but maybe there's a way that we can discourage it in some ways. I'm not really sure, or not use it as a basis of for prosecution. Yes, I think that was it for prosecution. Yeah.
We have to keep on top of that. You're okay with using it as a basis for security?
Not solely, not only, primarily. I think that was the issue that ACLU had, was that they discouraged it for the school basis.
Yeah.
And that's why in Detroit, a couple folks have been jailed for wrongful identification. So.
Yes. Thank you. And Bob, for city council.
So that is going to be coming tomorrow, and thanks for all of your efforts in helping us get here. And essentially, it's just making sure that this is another way for us to show our gratitude, our values, right? And it's something that we internally as a city also do not do. We don't ask about criminal legal history until an offer is given, and then the offer is contingent upon what comes back. And so we are asking our contractors to do the same with their own employees. And there should be a letter that is included in the RFP packet that will alert contractors that moving forward, we ask that you don't ask about criminal legal history. As you all know, the section about contractors in the NDO is going to be changed to also reflect this new policy. And this will apply to, so, we have value-based procurement, but best value procurement. That is, I think, specific to, is it construction?
Yeah. Well, so far.
It's construction. And this will be specific to goods, services, and construction contracts, 25K or above.
Construction that the city is
Contracting out, yep. Yep.
but not road construction.
I think it does include road construction. I'm not sure.
That would be good.
Yeah. One thing that we have to think about as a values implementation, because it will be part of our charge. So for example, I think that there was discussion before about do we put a notice on our website, do we add it as part of our form, and I think wherever we put it, we just need to clearly communicate if you are a contracted employee of the city and potentially experienced being asked about your criminal legal history prior to being offered your job. At any point during the interview process, you are eligible to file a complaint with us. But we have to be clear that it's not we can't enforce this due to state law in businesses outside of those that we are doing business with. Companies that we're contracting with.
Sorry,
No, it's okay.
there already is a poster, right, that kind of summarizes and then maybe because that's including the impacts that the contractors get, so we need to amend that
Yes.
to include this addition.
And make sure that that's actually posted.
The flyer.
Right. And we may want to do something more than that. We might want a letter explaining what it's about or something that's more.
And I think that procurement is going to also talk about this more implementation. I guess we're more enforcement, their implementation.
Yeah, but we need to talk to procurement about.
We should.
Yeah.
Yep. And, whether this is going to potentially limit our contracting pool, we won't know. What I'm being told is no. But this is something that we can track. And if it doesn't, we can revisit it. But this is a really good way for us to demonstrate our values. And I've talked to folks in labor who are supportive of this because it encourages, again, those contracting companies to give more people jobs, irrespective of their past.
That's a good idea. It could be very valuable.
And I want to say that this idea came to me through a 509 class. So a group of students. I don't know if they're here tonight. So.
Yes, in fact, they may be the same students, in fact.
Okay.
There were two of them who were doing this.
Yeah.
No, this is unarmed responsibility. It was for the rest of the government.
Yeah.
And they're very proud of that.
Yeah.
And they should be. Let's talk a minute about the social work partnership that we're doing, because it's coming up with, as I think you'll see, some really interesting stuff. It's, I don't know why this year was so much better than, for example, last year, but it was. And we've got, excitingly, students very interested. Almost, I think every student came up, took ideas that we offered them and wrote reports about it. Many of them are very good. We now have a library, and Brandon, who are going to help us with putting those up on a Google Drive, because that is a great thing for people to use when we start a project or we're thinking about a project. And these are we weren't getting reports. These are really PowerPoint kinds of things. But they also include, which I like, is a bibliography and a list of resources and data. I want references for data. What information they are. But I want to support the arguments with data. So you've got to make sure that they to reference the data so we know who they're talking about and to estimate whether it's valid or not. I think we should start a library to have available for anybody and I'm wondering how to do it. How to make it useful for everybody. So what would we need?
We might have to talk to Lisa Weinbrush about how somehow that gets included on almost in a website or something. Even so, but it's got to be with the city's database somehow.
Do we want it for the city or do we want it just for?
Oh, I thought you meant open to the public.
It maybe, I don't know. It needs to have something that says that people understand where it's coming from. But I think it would be useful to have, at least for us and maybe for the whole community. We have shared it with other people. There's a lot of work being done by them on housing, for example, and we're sharing it with the housing commission. There's some stuff with mental health that we share with CME, for example. So I guess what I'm asking, what I also want to know is how is it going to be, it has to be indexed in some way. It's got to be easy to sort. And you've got to be aware that maybe you'll read one and it won't be, we're using a lot of same topics over and over again until we solve the topic. For example, in our response, I think it's been in all three of them. So there are a lot of things being done. So we just need some kind of an index. And Brandon, you volunteered, I think, to do this. Is there anything you want from this group before you start doing it, I guess?
I think one of the things that would be helpful for me is if there is like a common platform that people would like, if there is like a Google Drive, or if this is something that could be with like one of the city's emails, or connect with that, so that no matter who the commission, like at the lead or something, it's easy to transfer to future people, so that they can just kind of information on that. When it comes to indexing everything, I think it can definitely be based on the topic, and then there can be different headings and all that type of stuff, or just common points or common, like unique points of like particular type of thing. So I think there's like a couple different things that I think just knowing like what would be most beneficial to all of you would be the best start. And then it's just like we have to think about what do we want the end goal to be for like these reports and everything, like how do we want to like utilize it. So I think once we have a better vision of that, then we know how to best utilize like what resources and assets we already have.
Maybe if we go, if we think of it as like an orientation for the survey.
Certainly could do that. Yeah.
Like here are some of the topics that we've discussed in the past year, past 3 to 5 years.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure they're necessarily reflect that. No.
Not so much.
But very similar.
Yeah, but there are things that we may, almost all of them are things we might be interested in doing in the future.
Is there any way for us to know what resources would be helpful from our community members? Like, have they been asked for maybe housing resources or activism resources, or kind of like to help us gauge on how we could create the resource? Like, there are some takes on activism for Washington County and how we can get engaged in that space. There are some tips on resources for mental health resources. Is there anything that's kind of like showing you what is the biggest need?
I don't think so. Most of them are issues that we brought to them, and we wanted them to take the viewpoint of it in Ann Arbor. So they're very local, but we also want to know what cities have done it and what's worked and what hasn't. So it's kind of a combination of things that could be useful, but the activism probably was, they were thinking of of some group like us doing that with it.
I was wondering if we can use that information for the strategic planning session that we have then, and
That's
these are
an
projects
idea.
that we want to move forward with and everything, then we can go through like those main ideas and then figure out like where do we fit in, what's within our domain of control as well, and then use it that way. Because if we engage in those projects in the first place, we're going to have to do that research anyway, so they kind of have already implemented those initial steps. So I think that might be one of the most beneficial ways to utilize that information and then give us a better opportunity to get momentum on the variety of projects.
That's a good idea. Anything else on that topic?
Do we know of other commissions or other bodies have a similar effort?
Not that I know of.
This started because Aisha was
That's
teaching
right.
one of those classes.
Oh.
It was and so she, yeah, it's been 3 years, I guess.
It's been 3 years,
Yes.
yeah. And, you know, now it's been replicated across the school by different professors. And there is a professor in the fourth school who wants to do it. And they were talking about doing it with the Transportation Commission.
Oh, okay.
So I think that something like that, or even something that's interdisciplinary, might be a good idea, right? Like interdisciplinary between schools even, social work students, with, I don't know, engineering students or whatever.
School of Public Health.
School of Public Health, right? Like there was one project that was done that was about like using blockers and repeaters to provide free internet, wireless internet access and subsidized housing. Like there was amazing ideas that came out of that. So it is something that I think that we should bring to other commissions. That was a long answer.
Yeah. Sounds again like strategic planning.
Yeah, something, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And that maybe could be something that we help to do just for the city in general, like share that idea with other commissions and tell them, here are my views, here's how you plan for the class.
I don't think I understood that.
Just as part of our strategic plan, we can talk more about how we can also use it to benefit other commissions.
Yes. Okay, that would be a good idea.
Commissioner open position update?
Yes. Commissioner, open position. We've not gotten an awful lot of,
We have several.
we have several, that's true. And some people did not know that it was not a paid position, and that will change things. So, and I don't know why they didn't know that, but it was, because I think it is on the, I don't know if it's on the application.
Aren't all of the
Yeah.
commissioner openings are voluntary and not paid?
Yeah.
So none of them are.
Yeah.
Should be no.
Well, at least one person didn't know that.
Okay.
He was disappointed. So we're looking at, I think we've got some possibilities and we will pursue them quickly. Complaints, Judah.
See, we have 3 new ones in the new year, and just came in this week. And we have, I believe, only 2 that are outstanding that we're still in process from carryovers from last year. 2.5, there's the one that I've referred to before where Planet has reached out. I've reached out back to them twice and didn't get a response. So that one's in a kind of a inchoate state, but the other ones are moving along, and then the new ones will be, we're going to start to look into them immediately.
Okay. Two,
HRC strategic.
well, one more thing about complaints. We've got new people here who have not taken complaints, and I'm interested to see if they want to. New people would have to work with somebody else, but we do have other people who would like to.
So I have 2 that haven't been, we usually have at least 2 people on them, so if anyone's interested, if you're interested, you can talk afterwards and
Definitely.
and see if you can work with someone else. We usually try to pair someone who's been here a while with someone who's new.
Yeah, that'd be
Good.
Right. And I think that's true for Sarah probably too.
And maybe Brandon. I don't know.
Yeah, there's one, but I kind of just upset it in a way. So.
Right.
Right. I might have one for you. Okay.
Do your part, Brandon.
Kind of pull my weight.
Planning for the strategic planning meeting, which is now probably March. We need somebody who is willing to help plan it and think about it. And Brandon, you might be the person. What do you think?
I've been voluntold again. I'll do it with you. I'll work with you. Yeah.
I'll work with Brandon.
Well, that would be good.
I do have a question.
Sure.
What is the structure of, like, the strategic plan? Are you all doing, like, people, process, product? Because the one that I've worked on has been, like, people, process, products. Trying to figure out, like, what is kind of the structure for actually getting to the strategic plan.
It's a good question.
I think in general, what we try to do is sort of step back and look to see what we need to do better, how we need to do it, and whether there are some larger projects we want to tackle going forward. But making sure, for instance, I remember last year, we're always working on improving the complaint process, and that's our fundamental responsibility. And it's still a work in progress. So I think that always has to be on the agenda. There always needs to be a discussion about that. Maybe looking back at some of the things we've done and how that's worked out. And then going forward, new ideas for things that have been percolating. That's my sense of it.
So, like, assessment of current deliverables and then going back to figure out how to, like,
improve, and then new ideas.
Also,
Tend to be pretty reactive sometimes because sometimes there's just a lot coming at us and it can take years to work on those things. So we often don't have the luxury of actually choosing what we want to do next. But when we do, it's nice to.
and it's nice to have something in the background so that we don't have to go with the emergencies all the time, so that we're looking constantly to improving one area of.
Okay. And the timing is good if we're looking for this to happen in March, it's before our next budget
Yes.
discussion. So
We would like to have a budget.
I've heard. I've heard. But I think we need like a very specific ask so that we can advocate for it and see where it would live, you know. So if there's a larger project in support of, I guess, more social work classes maybe, or I know there's been a movement in school social work to pay interns, you know, so maybe we can think about how we can advance this work and actually have it within the city budget. So I think thank you so much. We're so glad that you're budgeted towards this.
Yes, we are.
I know, right?
And one other thing is maybe, you know, our own kind of community engagement here. And also us, I think, in that strategic planning session, really draw the boundaries of defining how and in what ways we want to contribute in the community. With everything that's gone on recently, they're going to ask of us, can you guys facilitate any of those dialogues? You know, so I don't know if that's necessarily, you know, on behalf of a municipal body like ours to do, but there might be a way that we can play our part in the community around conflict and around, and also to let people know we're here.
Yeah.
Right, if this resolution passes, it basically mentions us doing more outreach, which, you know, takes resources.
Yeah. So, you're welcome.
So good point. Just some thoughts as we go in. This is just like reflecting on what needs to be done, what we've done in the past. We should start thinking about putting dollar amounts then, right? Like if the expectation is of us being in community, the community just coming to us when things get pretty fraught, right?
Yeah.
But if we are consistently in community at events, at how 8 o'clock is at Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Everyone
We were
expects
there
to.
too.
But you were
Yes,
there.
we were.
We were both there. Yeah, we were both there. But if there are other community specific events that we can be participating in, you know, as with the table, with flyers and something, we'll just have to be, I think, more imaginative about what that would look like.
Yeah. Even like our own anti-hate day or something. I don't know if you want to call it anti-hate day, but you know what I mean. Where we create spaces with like communities, different marginalized communities to come and
So I have an example from Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, which is where I serve on with Councilmember Chris Watson. And that's like a city-county effort, right? So it gets staffed by county folks. And we talk about county-wide housing issues. So because Ann Arbor contributes general fund dollars, and we have seats as liaisons on there. So one of the events that we had earlier in the fall was participating in Parking Day. So we took over a parking spot downtown. We talked about housing. And we had information boards from our housing commission. And we staffed that for 12 hours. So that was a way for us to be in community and talk about housing with people in front of Sweetwater's for 12 hours and playing games and talking about parking and which developments are coming, how it's financed. You know, people have ideas on what large buildings can mean and look like, and then have assumptions and about who's coming to Ann Arbor and who should be in Ann Arbor when we should be welcoming to all.
Right.
So it was a good practice for us to actually engage with people outside of our committee meetings and say, like, all right, this is one, we exist. Please consider applying for open seats on HHSAB. 2, here are these are the housing issues, and it runs adjacent to the tenants advocacy groups and tenants commission, tenants rights commission. And it's parking day. We took over actually 2 parking spots. So
it was good. Yeah, something like that.
And how, from our previous times and everything, how long has that strategic planning taken place and everything? Is it usually just
hours, maybe?
Yeah, it has not been all day.
Last time we did it at the Burns Park.
No, we should do the senior center actually.
Because wasn't that
It was heated.
It was the warming hut.
Yeah.
So it had warmth, yeah.
Yeah, the one. It was fun.
Yeah.
We brought food and.
Yeah, we brought food.
that's just helpful, format-wise. We have a couple different frameworks in mind. So
Right.
definitely not doing a 2-day one.
I can have two since
Yes.
I've been there before and you guys
But we could have used more time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's a juggling act between availability and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
because part of it needs to be a living thing that has iterations to it as
Right.
well. So that can hopefully be part of the plan of just how do we make sure that we're living into this strategic plan and going back into it and everything and making those consistent updates so that it's not just we do the work and then it's just in the shelf.
I want to acknowledge that we just got the school social work group, our response group. Are all of you here now?
Yes.
Oh, good. So you're ready to start any time. We could now mobilize and get you ready to go. Do you would like to speak? Are you going to speak one at a time, like in front of a podium, or do you want to just stay there and talk up there? Yeah. We will project here. Where's the projector? Where is the? It's right at the end. So we'll have the PowerPoint. It's right there. Can you change? So if you want to, if you're more comfortable sitting, you can move your chairs over there. Or stand, whatever you like.
Thank you.
And please start by introducing yourself and just telling us a little bit about the assignment. Great. Oh, there's seats over there. Yeah. Come on, guys. Listen up.
you for Hi everyone, my name is Lydia Farina.
I'm Arun Rajarajan. I'm Justin Kim.
And we are first year master's students at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. This is our first semester in the program, and in our community organizing class, Leslie came and presented some topics, and we decided to look into an unarmed crisis response in Ann Arbor. So we did our research, we looked into the population of Ann Arbor, the city, the current state of and implementation of this kind of response in Ann Arbor, and we also provided a case study, Kahoot, if you're familiar with that, we'll dive into that more. And then we also have some proposed interventions. So first we want to start out with our needs assessment and looked at kind of the desires and needs of the Ann Arbor citizens. Go ahead and slide. So in 2021, public sector consultant was hired by the city of Ann Arbor to explore support and input for an unarmed crisis response in Ann Arbor. They used a series of interviews, public surveys, and forums to derive this information. So in the surveyed group, Ann Arbor citizens widely supported the creation of an unarmed crisis response team in instances of nonviolent or non-life-threatening situations. And about 91% of those surveyed said that they believe this program will make their communities safer. So the chart on the left shows the support for this response. A vast majority surveyed think that the response would benefit the community and they would also use this service. The graphs on the right demonstrate a high level of support across different racial and ethnic groups. Public sector consultants also reported that this support extends across all income groups and people with a history of contact with the criminal justice system. So the responses were slightly less unanimous when it came to the logistics of forming this team and this service. About 86% of participants agreed with the reallocation of city funds to run this program, and about 41% agreed to fund this program through a new tax assessment. In terms of accessing the service, responses varied, is seen as this pie chart right here. The most favored methods were accessing the service through calling 911. Next was the new statewide mental health crisis line, which is 988. And third was a new phone number that was unique to the specific service and program. The survey also provided insight into what Ann Arbor citizens would be looking for from the service. Survey respondents prioritized mental health crises, suicide prevention, assessment, intervention, grief counseling, homelessness assistance, and substance use. So the desires of the citizens actually are mapped very well onto the needs reflected in our public health data from Washtenaw County Health Department. Mental health crises and suicide present growing challenges for our community, as you can see in those statistics. And then additionally, the community is facing crises in homelessness and substance use. So we do want to take the time to highlight the community interactions with the local justice, or the local criminal justice system. Most Ann Arbor citizens have interacted with the criminal justice system here, and a majority of people have had or know someone who has had a negative experience with the local system. So there are a variety of racial and ethnic disparities and injustice in our community and structures, particularly recently with the rise in the awareness of police violence, and particularly in the wake of the list of individuals here who experienced death or harm because of our local criminal justice system. It's really important that we're looking at this issue, as you all have, but that this is implemented in some shape or form. The community deserves access to services with professionals that are trained specifically and equipped specifically to handle nonviolent crisis situations that are often compounded by health and factors of diversity and access.
Yeah, so this is a slide just highlighting the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission for our class, just in case they didn't know about the existing infrastructure of Ann Arbor, what we've already done in order to provide for these kinds of services. I'm sure all of you are very well familiar with the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, considering that I saw it on the sign in your lobby. What is the fifth floor, fourth floor? Sixth floor, yes.
Yeah, so Ann Arbor has actually taken some steps towards implementing an unarmed response service. So it'd be good to talk about the current state of their efforts. But first, just a little background for those who may not be familiar, just a little refresher. In April of 2021, Ann Arbor City Council passed a resolution to explore what an unarmed response service would look like. In December of 2021, an interim report was delivered back to them detailing what research has been found on different states, what they've done with a similar service, and they also outlined some next steps that the city could take to make their own service. Following this, Ann Arbor hired public sector consultants to do some community feedback and interviewing to get a sense of what the people would want out of a service like this. Following this, Ann Arbor passed another resolution in June of 2023 expressing their support for the establishment of an unarmed response service. In that resolution, they noted that they wanted the service to be implemented by a third-party organization, and that organization could be linked directly or could not be linked to the Ann Arbor Police Department, and they also wanted the establishment of a separate phone number to be used to access the service as opposed to 911. Now, following that, the city opened an request for proposals or an RFP for third parties to send in their ideas for what plans for services that the city can use. Only one organization submitted an application, Care-Based Safety, or CBS, and in February 2023, they had actually announced their own plan for a pilot program to launch in Ypsilanti in early 2024. They went through the hiring and training process in fall of 2023, and they submitted their application for the RFP in September. Unfortunately, the city closed the RFP in December, and they stated that CBS's plans were not in keeping with what they wanted out of the service. So the current state of this whole service is that the city is revising the RFP and they're able to open it back up in early 2024. I believe is the time frame, but they are in want of a service such as this, but they're still figuring out the right way to go about doing that. And we have a couple of ideas of how to do that, but we'll get into that later. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can go ahead. And one more time, sorry.
Okay, so we did have a look at CBS and some of their findings that we thought were really interesting and that should be considered in this implementation. First off, the well-treatment of the staff and, to avoid burnout and turnover, also having the staff be fully trained and equipped to handle these kinds of crises, and also people that are invested in the community and that have ties to this community, as this, in a perfect world, would also be contingent with a community strength building initiative to create this community and also support our neighbors. This program also has to address the root causes of violence to be a truly public health centered approach. And also this program should be centered on self-determination and radical consent and avoid any kind of coercion. So we also looked at Cahoots as a case study. This is a program out in Eugene, Oregon. It is one of the first and most comprehensive unarmed crisis response programs in the U.S., and it's been functioning for about 31 years. We think there are several aspects of Cahoots that would function very well in Ann Arbor based on CBS reports and also the public sector consultants reports. So CBS uses two separate bands, one that runs 24 hours per day, 7 days a week, and the other runs about 7 hours per day during whatever they define as like a peak 7 hours. The vans are accessible, so they include ramps and any other
accessibility equipment that's needed for anyone with a disability, or people who use wheelchairs. The staff members are not law enforcement officers, and they do not carry any kind of weapons or handcuffs. They do not wear uniforms. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, some of them are wearing sweatshirts or t-shirts, just so they can be identified. And also their vans do not have sirens. Cahoots responders typically either have a CMT certification, have experience working at the fire department, have a human services degree, experience in human services, and many of them are also multilingual. So the Cahoots and police department in Eugene have a working relationship that benefits both the community members and the responders. The Cahoots responders are equipped with police radios, so they can listen in to police calls and be contacted by the police if they are needed, or if they would be better equipped to handle the situation. And vice versa, Cahoots can also call police if there is an instance of violence or a crime that they are required to be dispatched to. This is a really important relationship because in 2019, out of the 24,000 calls that were made to Cahoots, only 311 required police backup. So those are in instances, again, of crimes, cases of violence, or when consent cannot be given. In an emergency custody situation, Cahoots will actually follow the police to whatever facility is necessary, like a hospital, and they'll include their observations and their information on a transfer sheet to notify any providers or recipients of the individual or persons of their perspective on the case. And lastly, we did have some ideas of why or how this model might not be exactly applicable to Ann Arbor. We do have some key demographic differences, such as the population estimate, but also some of the racial demographics. Ann Arbor is a much more heterogeneous population. Also, we, just from the CBS reports and other information, because this is supported or funded by the Eugene Police Department, we were unsure if that is something that community members here would support. And also, Cahoots is only accessible by calling 911, which does, that's not exactly what the community members really wanted in the reports. So, it's a really great model. It's been successful for 31 years. There just are some considerations we think wouldn't exactly fit here.
Okay, so now we're just going to go into some of the proposed interventions that we found out about while we were doing our research. These are mostly based off of existing programs that have shown success in the United States. Just a little bit of background of some financial statistics that we found about the city of Ann Arbor, and also about how we might propose to budget these interventions. Next one. So the first one, relatively cheaper option, and also kind of a little bit easier to implement, is to actually embed mental health care and social work professionals in the 911 call centers, or at least training the dispatchers in some sort of behavioral mental health services, so that they can provide services over the phone. And so, this does give us the potential to give immediate service, more accurate service to those in need that do call 911. And it also reduces the load on the police, healthcare, first responders that don't actually have to go out there and perform these services themselves. And just the requirements are relatively simple for this one. Increased funding for those 911 call centers, or at least some training in these areas of expertise could be what's necessary to provide these services. And also, we could also think about pulling professionals from the existing infrastructure already in Ann Arbor to work in these 911 call centers, or at least work with in liaison. And the bonus of having the 911 call centers be the nexus of these kinds of operations is that there is always the option for police backup, or any other 911 service as backup for the providers. And next slide, please. So these are some of the requirements continued, but also some of the drawbacks. Though this is potentially, like one of the easier options of giving over the phone interventions and increasing the expertise of the dispatchers, it still doesn't address how in-person services might potentially be addressed. And then also the transportation doesn't account for that. You'd still be, shunting that to the people that are going out there, the first responders right now, and not really dealing with the big thing in the room. I'm forgetting what is the saying? Elephants. The elephants in the room. And then also the partnership between any institutions that we are in and are in cahoots with, and the city of Ann Arbor would have to be discussed in terms of, what kind of services would they need to provide for the 911 centers, and how would this work with an around-the-clock service. Option 2 is that would it
help people if we talk about option 1 and ask the question? I'm getting too many questions in my head. I'm wondering.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
True.
I do have one thing. I was under the impression that community mental health in Ann Arbor already had some kind of working relationship with the police.
They do.
But I think, and I could be wrong, community mental health wasn't actually comfortable going without the police. And so that's been a problem. And then you have people not feeling comfortable calling 911 because of prior bad experiences with the police. So those are, anyway.
Yeah. No, the safety of our first responders was always it was a consistent concern amongst all of our interventions. And also, they do have a hotline. CMH has a hotline. It's just also nobody knows about it. It was my first time hearing about it when I learned about it through our research, and
And yet, cahoots managers, they go without police backup most of the time.
Yes.
So maybe they're trained differently than, say, community mental health would be. They have more skills that might be appropriate.
We have a different relationship with police. Like CMH is very close to the sheriff's office.
That's okay.
Yeah, Cahoots is under Whitebird Clinic, I believe. It's like a separate entity inside of the clinic that is funded by the Police Department of Oregon. And they most likely, if not, I don't know if we exactly saw this, they probably do receive some sort of safety training, and they always have the walkie-talkies ready for if any kind of, because they, even looking at the statistics, some of them did require police backup. And so that...
Not many.
Not many.
Not many. Surprisingly, yeah.
Did you come across any injuries to the mental health providers?
I don't think they would advertise that on their list.
There was a report by the Vera Institute, and I did not see any reports of injuries. And I would assume in that report they would have that, but I can't say for sure. But
I think the big thing though, is don't they screen at, because it's a 911 call, but then they still screen it at the dispatch center.
Right, yeah, because the 911 dispatcher is the one who directs the call, so they will decide if Cahoots is if that's a great authority, to go in and intervene there. So there is that kind of screening that goes on, which might mitigate some of that.
Did you hear any? One of the issues people have about 911 is that there's a sense that there's a police bias, and that they tend to, choose police rather than mental health. Did you deal with that in any way?
There wasn't, I didn't see how many numbers exactly were diverted to Cahoots versus diverted to 911 dispatchers or police officers. I'm just not sure, but I could definitely look into that.
You already finished the class though, right? So you don't have to do it anymore.
Oh, I don't mind. I really don't. That's a very good question. Yeah.
Anybody else before we go into option 2?
Okay, so option 2 is actually the CBF model. It's a politically supported yet independent organization outside of the county government, and in this case the Ann Arbor Police Department, that provides an unarmed first response. This is, I'm sure you're all familiar with CDS. It provides more options for dispatchers. It, addresses the elephant in the room. But this is potentially one of the more expensive options for comprehensive service and, around-the-clock service. I think this is what we also based our budget off of, and it came out to a lot. I think it was 1.7 million. Just going off of, base Michigan average pay, and then we looked at Cahoots. I think it was 2018, 2019 fiscal.
You can look at offsets from what you could save from the police budget by having this.
From the police budget.
So if you have this, then maybe you need less money on police.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. We didn't look at, we just made the budget for the program, but yeah,
The police department might not approve of that, but that is something.
No, I know statistics.
Yeah, well, I mean, if police aren't dispatched, and then this organization or this institution is taking care of those, then definitely offers cuts for, I mean, I know the police department won't like that.
Yeah.
But still.
When you look at the overall budget.
That's true, yeah. And though, the more that we kind of looked into this, the more that it is quite, the undertaking, because we have to not only house this institution, we'd have to find professionals to staff it, we'd have to find transportation, we'd have to make sure that all the employees are certified in their respective categories, have training, are they need to be in contact with, 911 at least, if any emergencies happen. And so this is the most comprehensive, we'll say, and, it does seem like it is the most optimal, but then again, there's always the cost to be considered. Option 3 is the Cahoots model, actually. Just taking it straight from them is that this is a collaboration almost of existing infrastructure in Ann Arbor. For example, like U of M, CMH, stuff like that. We have ambulances, we have mental health care professionals, we have EMTs. Why not bring them all together under the same hat and then provide these services through something that is politically, under the city government, but also is able to work with all these organizations in order to cut costs also and, provide the best care possible. So this is also a good option, we think. It obviously works for Cahoots, it might work for us. But this would also require the most coordination, probably if we are pulling professionals from their workplaces or if we are staffing these things 24/7, we will need, a lot of work between existing institutions to, come together and provide this service. And then option 4 is a civilian-led program, a grassroots program.
Can we just go back to Cahoots before we jump to
Sure,
the
yeah.
fourth? Cahoots, I think, you started out as a 501c3, a private organization, and then became under the government fairly recently.
Oh, really? Okay.
I may be wrong about that, but I think that's true. So you didn't hear anything about the history and why they might have done that?
No, we thought, because it's on their webpage says that they've always been associated with Whitebird Clinic. There was like a small team working under the clinic. That's what we got from their description of their history. If they were independent, we didn't hear about that. I think they've always been a governmentally funded.
Okay, I will check on it, thank you. Anybody else want to?
There are civilian-led crisis response programs currently, and also in one, I believe, a Vera Institute that I was looking at. They give very good instructions on their website how to make your own grassroots crisis response program. And this would obviously require the least amount of money, but the most civilian interaction and participation, as we are pulling people from their own communities to serve these 24-hour services. And the good thing about this is that it is people in the community that have an invested interest in serving their community that are using this service, and people are more likely to use this if they understand that it's people from their area that are willing to serve. But then also there are issues of privacy professionalism, training, and where they're going to get funds, and how effective these programs are going to be. So those were our 4 options, and these are our references if any of y'all are interested in finding out a little bit more about any of these programs or the research that we did. I believe that's it.
I have another question. I don't know if you got into the weeds of this, and I wouldn't have expected you to, but did you, I haven't, but the request for a proposal that the city put out and the response that it received, are those both public? I don't know.
Yeah.
And did you look at them?
I took a look at CBS's response to them, like taking away the proposal, which was interesting because they, so like the main issues that the city had was that they felt that, well, the city mainly wanted the service to be like up and running within like 2 years, like to be like actually functional, and they felt that CBS like had like maybe like 5 years before it could be that. And then on top of that, I believe there was an issue of the availability of the service. The city felt that CBS had like limited hours of available like support, again like transportation, and so that's what I gathered from the reason behind that. Yeah.
It was very administrative heavy when it came to the budget that CBS had proposed versus service oriented. And I think the city was really looking in the RFP that they had put out, it was really specific on being more service oriented. So.
Do you have any idea why they weren't more takers in the RFP aside from Leslie's idea that the RFP wasn't done very well specifically?
I mean, it's the first in the state. I mean, besides Cahoots, it's in Colorado, in Texas, El Paso County, Harris County, Ithaca, and it's usually a joint effort, not only from the city, but the local hospital system, right? So in a couple cities, it's philanthropy. So it's like the local area community foundation, the city would also budget for it, and then local hospitals. So it's usually like this coordinated community-wide effort, and then for us, it came out of what should we do with our ARPA money, and also initially it was a resolution, and then ARPA money came in. So we kind of did it as a let's imagine that the need is already out there. We already know that the need is out there versus it being a coordinated response, like service response between institutions.
In your research and everything, I was able to go to some of like the listening tour aspect of this and everything, so it was really interesting to hear just community members' insight. And like in your research, I was curious if you came across like anything around just like public education around the services, of like what did they do to actually get the word out there in terms of like advertising, marketing, and just here's this resource, this is how you use it, or here's how we even define what a crisis is, what violence is, and how to differentiate that. So I know that was like some conversation points that came up from those sessions, but in your research, did anything like that, I guess like come up, or do you have any ideas on what that might look like?
Yeah, that is a big thing. Nobody knows about it. We're not gonna call.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we didn't explicitly find. I don't think we found anything that was working, stellar in getting the word out about this alternative service. I guess the best thing that we could come up with on the spot is more so just like advertising in community centers, telling us social workers to go out and spread the word, or like going to family centers, shelters, getting the word out that way. Yeah, but that is quite the. I think that's like also a universal concern, is that like if there are these services present in any county in the U.S., that nobody's going to use it, nobody's going to know about it. That needs to be. That was one of our like big areas in the budget, of like the advertising of these services. So.
I will add, CBS had mentioned in their plan that they wanted to have like community service, like or community events, I believe, just like advertise that. And that was something mentioned in the RFP, that too much of their budget was allocated towards that, I believe. So I guess it's like
it's sort of tough. Like, how much do you give to advertising as opposed to like the actual service?
I was even thinking about just like the dual functions of it, of like if that is supposed to build trust with the community members, you kind of have to do those events as opposed to being reactive. So there's a lot more insight that can give us that.
One of the first option you mentioned, building community strength. And I assume that's in some ways the same kind of thing, but I don't know, what do you mean by that?
I think that was addressed by CPS actually. We might have integrated that into the first intervention that we talked about. It would be, I think it would mean like looking at Ann Arbor and seeing like what are like Ann Arbor's like intrinsic like strengths. Like we have, we have people that are extremely involved, whether they're like working at the library, whether they're artists in the community, whether like whatever their positions are, and looking at them to disseminate information, or also like what are huge events in Ann Arbor that we could capitalize on to advertise. But then each community is different, so. But you also have like the university here. You also have like this huge like worldwide known like hospital system. So that for advertising, implementing, and then also convincing people to set up or partake in this kind of response.
I think it reads more like, how there are community-based violence intervention programs and how the state provides this local, state, federal funding for CBDI work. I think that's what they're trying to get at, is that it's not only the service response, it's also the work that you have to do to prevent violence. But again, that work is not something that was expected to have been covered under the RFP. Thankfully, like Senator Justin King, the governor, and a lot of the gun safety and gun control legislation that came through the past few years, a lot of advocates had pushed for more funding for community-based violence intervention, which helps CBDI, if you're taking a look at that. And I would also encourage you to take a look at Harris County and the Houston area. They actually have social vehicles that built up the community advertising that this is unarmed crisis response. They actually, it's called HEART, it's a public health initiative. So it's not only just the city, it's county public health, the local hospital system, and HEART stands for Holistic Assistance Response Team, HART. So, and that goes through 911 dispatch. But yeah, I think when they talk about the community strengths, I think they're really talking about like how do we work with community, not just to build trust, but build programs that specifically speak to diverting folks in the justice system, right? Giving alternatives to violence, or like having mediation work, economic stability, and I think the whole idea behind this is not an alternative to police, but making sure that folks are diverted from the justice system isn't just being unjust and offensive, right? And it doesn't actually get people the care that they need. The intention originally of this is that in responding, we actually give people the care that they need. If it's a mental health crisis, you get mental health service, right? If it's a substance abuse issue, you get substance abuse resources. If it's homelessness, then you go through a different process. And police can't, they do that now, but it prevents them from doing like investigative or like serious crime, or work around serious crime. So it's really for us, it's more kind of like a justice issue, equity issue, and response issue on our crisis response to be more efficient.
Did you find groups that were having trouble getting people to call them? Seems to me when I read about Cahoots, they got well-known fairly quickly.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing any of that, but I haven't looked at the organization in Houston that was mentioned.
Yeah, Houston is really good, and then Colorado has a really good program. If you look up, there's a good briefing by Texas Appleseed. It's called Briefings in Crisis Response in Texas, and it talks all about like the difference between having like a central, like using law enforcement as a first responder versus like a crisis intervention team versus like alternative models, and why are they not suitable in different cities, and how funding, like who your funding source really matters. So there's like political intention, there's community wants, and then there's like the how different funding sources have different boards. You know, like if the hospital system is funding something, like U of M, if Michigan Medicine funds something with us, that's probably going to go up to region folks, you know? So it really depends on where the money's coming from and those intentions that come with that funding. So for us, with this particular program, the intention with ARPA funding is that it's part of COVID relief, COVID response, right? And the way that we managed to get some of that funding to go towards this was that we made the argument that the folks who are most impacted by COVID and hurt by COVID were folks who are more likely to be exposed and wrapped into the justice system. So if COVID relief is supposed to be meeting the needs and bringing folks into a more healthy, safer situation post-COVID, then it's a good way to dedicate that ARPA funding towards it. But that money ends in 26. And you would assume the community would still have those needs after 26, right? So it's also a way to test our community to have this ongoing conversation and how we fund it, either with taxes or with different partners, either through philanthropy, through institutions, and then also other municipalities. So if it's not the city, then maybe it's the county, and if it's not the county, then maybe it's the state. And we shouldn't be the only ones doing this in the county either.
Other questions?
Just out of curiosity, maybe either premature or after the fact and irrelevant, but just more of a curiosity, how many actual respondents responded to the survey relative to response that allowed you to come to 93% of those surveyed said yes, they were interested? So what was that number?
This was actually the section that our other team member who isn't here did, but I can quick look here.
I think it was a pretty solid number, because this was still like kind of locked down.
This was an MLive article.
Yeah.
Yeah, from 1400, I think.
People were really interested in how we used our ARPA money.
Yeah. You still are.
Yeah. 24 million was gone.
And also, it might have been from the public sector consultant report, and that is linked in our references.
Okay, we can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was different phases of community engagement, right? It was like community engagement when we were trying to figure out how to dedicate the ARPA money, and then there was community engagement that public sector did to get ready to write the RFPs. Yeah. We've talked about this a lot in Ann Arbor.
Other questions? Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And this will be on, this has been recorded so that you can get a copy too.
You're on the public record forever.
Yeah, you should be proud. Okay, well, our last thing on the agenda is trespass.
Maybe Pam can help me with this. We met with, oh my gosh, what's his name? The interim chief, yeah, please.
Oh.
McGuire, Patrick McGuire, yes, no reflection on him, it's my head. Okay. It was already a few months ago. The new trespass notice form is being used. The police officers have been educated, there's a bit of a learning curve. So sometimes the forms aren't filled out exactly right because the forms are new, so they bring the officers in to fix it, they fix it. Most people who are requesting that people receive the trespass notice are still requesting the full year. But if you are not, and if you are very grateful to be able to request a shorter period of time. What am I forgetting?
From our meeting?
From our meeting,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't bring my notes tonight, but I think that covers it. There are some things that we're still kind of waiting on, like the compilation of the data. It's coming in, but it's not, there hasn't been enough time for one, for it for us to look at to see where there may be certain areas that are more evident than others. And then, but we have made progress. This has been a long time coming. We're finally there, right? But yeah, my questions go more to, we want to get the data so that we can look at it. And then we want to ensure that there's not some of the things that we had heard when we first introduced this subject matter, and that we heard from former assistant city attorney,
Well, what's her name?
Mary Ann.
Yeah.
Which when she presented, when we initially explored this subject matter, she shared with us that sometimes one individual was more impacted than others because they were red trespass and then they were sent notice, and there were just a combination of things. They didn't know how to appeal. They would appeal to the wrong witnesses. They wouldn't get the information in time. They either blew it off or didn't know. And then there was, other things, consequences that occurred. So this seems to have at least addressed that. We won't really know until we get the data to review the statistics. And so we can promise that that will be forthcoming. But it's too soon.
Okay. Yeah. Two things that surprised me. One of them was that there's more trespassing.
So can you pause for a second? It's getting difficult to hear commissioners speak, and I know that you're the chair and you can help us conduct the expectations of folks in the room. So, because we're trying to work on the business of this, like what's on our agenda, so we can. No, that was not the issue. I think we're just trying to hear ourselves speak. I just need to be able to hear you all, and I don't want you to shout over other public folks. Honestly, I could not hear. I cannot hear when there's background.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Two things that surprised me were that there are more trespasses now than there had been.
That's true.
And I thought...
Trespass notices, not actual...
Yes. And trespass notices are actually a good thing. I mean, that's something we learned when we were doing this, is that a trespass notice is not a misdemeanor. It's not a misdemeanor until or unless somebody goes back to the property that they've been been banned from. And so it's a way of helping people not get in the difficult police court system for doing something that's relatively minor. The other thing that I thought was interesting was that the people who are so far most happy about the options other than 1 year banning were shelters. That people were banned from shelters and then couldn't go back for a year. That was, if we hadn't even known that before, and that makes me uncomfortable that that happened. but now they don't have to. They can ban them for a day or a week, or I guess not a day, a week or a month.
I think it's 30 days.
It's
30 days.
Yeah, but then they can just specify what day they can come back.
And for some people, that's a good thing.
So I think we made a difference. Took a long time. There were how many police chief changes?
Yeah, 3 or 4 of them.
That made a difference,
Yeah.
and then NICPOC was formed, and they joined us in this.
Well, and Patrick McGuire deserves a lot of
He
credit
does.
for moving it forward.
Yes.
With Amy Metzer, who assigned it to him.
Yeah.
So the two of them really, really stood out.
Yeah.
And finally making it happen. With our help.
With our help, yes. Yes, we did, we helped too.
And keeping the data is important, so we can see what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
See if any
Well,
further changes
as
are
opposed to
needed.
none, because, it was kind of like, it was virtual, compared to what we have in place now, there was nothing.
Right.
There was something, but comparatively speaking,
it
there
was
wasn't.
terrible.
And so they didn't know numbers, they didn't know anything about, was there greater incidence in this area as opposed to individuals? There was no tracking, there was none of that in place, and all of that is in place now. So that'll be helpful.
It will also be interesting to see if there are any appeals, because there was no appeals process.
Right, yeah. Yeah, none of that was known.
Right.
That's why some would want to appeal and then did so to the wrong entity. Sometimes individuals couldn't be found, and then, they would get another something that would compound their initial incident, and just a number of things that we believe this has now addressed, and remains to be seen what the outcome will be, but at least it is in place, and we're happy about that.
I think so.
Great.
Okay. Anything else? Any new business? Any commissioner communications? And I think,
Move to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Today closed, Judith, 8:42 p.m.
But just in time to watch the Republican debate.
Oh, wow.